when my mom got cancer, it was like right in the middle of the pandemic. I had to like actually get through all this hurdle, getting quarantined, getting back to China to do all those like craziness. It was just very tough when you are working for someone. You almost like you have to beg for like mercy and approval to do something like that.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I am excited to be here with Kin Sio. Kin is an entrepreneur. We actually met through a mutual business acquisitions group. We met in person at a workshop. I don't know, that was at least
Last
a year
year.
ago.
Yeah.
Probably last fall, and have been in contact along the way. Kin has done some real estate investing as well as business acquisition. So I'm super excited to talk about it. I'm super excited to share this with the audience. Thank you for coming on the show today, Kin. I really appreciate you taking the time out.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for inviting me to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with just giving people a bit of your background. Kind of tell them your story and kind of what got you to where you are today, and then we'll just have a conversation from there.
Yeah, sounds good. This is Kin, and I'm a first generation immigrant. Originally, I'm from Macau, China. If you don't know, Macau is the Las Vegas of China. It was a Portuguese colony until 1999, given back to China. So, growing up is a interesting perspective, just seeing some Western influence, and now giving back to China, getting more Chinese influence. So that it was an interesting mixed experience. And from there, I came to the U.S. To study abroad for my college master and all that. Right after college, I started my career in tech. I was working at Microsoft for a few years as a product program managers. From there, then on to a smaller tech company, Coinbase, doing some crypto stuff. And as part of that tech career, I always joke about because in tech companies pay you enough to push your midlife crisis way sooner than a traditional career because hey, thanks, like it's really good money that we make there. So kind of a few years in, I was already like, okay, good salary. I have, I just got married and just got my whole, quote unquote, my life sorted out. Um, if I think about if back then, if I was thinking about like, is that going to be my life for the rest of my life? Like that kind of like, I wanted something more than just having a good salary and all that. I want back then I still had my families in China, so I travel back and forth. And then my parents got sick, they got cancer and all that. So there are many occasions throughout my career where I had to spend a few months back home in China taking care of my parents. And for anyone with a corporate job, you would know it's very tough to negotiate that with your boss. So I was, doing lots of juggling between being in Asia, still working. I'll be taking meetings like 3 a.m. till like 9 a.m. in the morning. After that, then off work and went on to taking care of my parents. Back and forth hospital and home and all that. So that was tough, and I think those experiences kind of led me to finding ways to be more financially independent so that I can take full control of my life. So from there, I kind of started getting into real estate investing because that was obviously one way to start building the portfolio of I wouldn't say passive income, I would say semi-passive income to eventually replace the active income and all that. So I was doing that for a few years, and interest rate went up like crazy. It was not as easy to buy something that cash flow anymore. And just from part of that process, I learned a lot about things in real estate that us as investors just did not have full control of.
Mhm.
So I kind of, kicking that to the next level of finding something with more of my control. So that's kind of when I was introduced to business buying, business acquisitions, and all that, kind of learn about the premises of that, understand, especially good that, us coming from a real estate background, there was lots of compare and contrast that we can do. I think there's something that transferable from the real estate investing journey to business acquisition. Obviously, there will be many stuff that needs to be learned as well, but it was a good segue into that full-on business ownership. So I did that, and with some luck, I find a reasonable, good deal, and end up just going all the way through the process and finished the acquisition as of February of this year. So this is my month number 5 being an owner of that business. It's called Lightsun Digital. It is a marketing agency with a niche in the hospitality space. So we do digital marketing for hotels. We also do something that's more specialized. It's called revenue management. Long story short is we managed the dynamic pricing for the hotels to maximize their profit potential. So this is kind of where I'm at. I'm just a few months into the full-on, still a grinding life of a business owner, with the hope that at some point we, myself, can build the company in a way that gives me the location and the time freedom that I was looking for.
Yeah. Such an interesting story. And like, I mean, I don't have a tech background, but I had sort of had the same, I don't know, realizations where it was like, the job is great, job pays well, but uh, I'm always at the whim of someone else. Basically, don't necessarily have control of my schedule. And when you have a family, especially when you start to have kids, like that becomes maybe more and more front of mind. I feel like when it's just you, it's like whatever. Who cares if someone else has control of my schedule for part of the day? I do what I want the rest of But then you realize when you have a family, there's just a lot more. I think commitments to outside of work, and so you like me, like, okay, real estate is something I know. I'll try that. So tell me a little bit about like what you specifically did in the real estate world. What was your kind of approach to that? Because we say it's, I mean, not unlike business acquisitions, like that's a broad category, and a lot of people say I'm going to get into real estate, but like there's about a million different ways to do that. So I'm just interested in what you did in the real estate space.
Yeah, yeah. So I started off pretty passively. It was I was still at Microsoft. Start looking into I find the Bigger Pockets podcast. Start listening to that. Learning about all this house hacking and bird investing and all those. So I started off with house hacking. We At the time we bought a condo, 2 bedroom. It was just me and my wife. So we just started renting out the second bedroom to a friend just to help with the mortgage payment.
Mhm.
So that was going pretty well. Well, actually, that didn't go that well because I first time being a semi landlord. We didn't know everything that the right things to do. We ran it to a friend of ours, and obviously the friend treated us more like a roommate than quote unquote landlord. So there was lots of boundary that did not set up right, and now we ended up, we didn't separate in the good terms. We lost a friendship. It just not the best place to be. But hey,
Yeah.
it's part of the journey, right? So
Right. Right.
from there, then I went on to getting my first out of state rental in Texas. So I'm based in Seattle, and my first rental was actually in Dallas through a turnkey company because I was like, oh, I just want something to get me through the hurdle of being comfortable of owning a rental property. So I went through with a attorney company. They source the deal, they fix it, they find a tenant for you. All you have to do is just buy the property, right? So that went pretty well. That also got me through the hurdle of okay, now it's okay to own a rental property, right? So after that, we started buying. By we, I mean me and my wife. We started buying kind of the small multifamilies, the 2 to 4 units locally in Washington, with value add opportunities. So every year we tried to buy a small multi, and not like in the worst shape. It's just outdated. So over time, as tenants turnover, we fix up, we renovate those units, push the rents and all that, kind of the usual value add play. And then from there, I think the last property that we bought was a eightplex, still in the Washington area, much older, kind of it was built back in 1900 or so. So there was a lot more stuff to be fixed. But at the same time, because I'm getting beyond the 4 units, right? So lots of that fixing and the pushing of the rents increased the value of the property much faster because it's all based on cap rate, not just on the market value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, that's kind of when the time we start getting into the higher interest rate environment. So sure, lots of folks out there, they remember the time when we just went from like a 3 to 4% all the way to like 8% and above. So yeah, I got hard money to purchase that eightplex, and when I got to the point of refinance to kind of the long-term financing, I used a DSCR loan for that. The rate was pretty high, so the cash flow wasn't as good as what I would expect. At least we kind of get to close to break even, and so we're still keeping that for now. But that was my last long-term hold property, and then that was the time I actually got laid off from a tech job. So I will start looking into ways to spend more time doing real estate investing. So at that point, I start, even just being, I got my license. I start brokering as well. I start doing fix and flip, just trying to find all sorts of active real estate strategies that could replace the tech income. Because at that point, close to 8 years into the career, I got to a point I don't want to work for someone anymore. So I want to start building that full ownership of my life by doing something on my own. So I'll just pause that and let's ask more questions and see where we want to go
Yeah.
from there.
Well, no, I think it's. I mean, a lot of guests have started as sort of the accidental landlord, and it's like, oh, we don't know what we're doing, and that most people don't, which I think is actually a good thing in a way. You just need to, and a lot of times, just start. You need to do something, like get as much education as you can. But if you're waiting to know everything, then you'll never actually be able to take action because you're not going to know everything. Markets are going to shift. There's been a lot of things that have happened over the last 5 years that have literally never been seen before. We had a pandemic. We had massive inflation. We had money printing. The rates shot up. It's just like there's just been a lot of things happening and changing. Changing the world in general, but certainly all of those things have impacted the way that real estate has worked for people over these last few years. And initially, it was impacting it in a good way, and then it impacted in sort of a bad way. So I think people found we've got to learn a lot of lessons in that space. So you were laid off, you went into kind of getting deeper in the real estate world, trying to earn active income there. What made you pivot or start to think about business acquisition? What was kind of the spark behind that?
Yeah. So I did that actively in real estate for that was beginning of 2023. So I spent a full year brokering, doing fix and flips for a year. It turned out I make decent income, kind of make my 6 figures that year. nowhere close to what I was making in tech. But I saw if I want to continue scaling that, probably give me like 3 years or so, I could kind of get to the previous like the level of income that I would make. Uh, but a couple of things that I was so as a reflection, right? One is I feel like I was kind of going backward because when you started buying rental properties, I was accumulating assets, and now I feel like getting into the real estate actively. I just feel like, oh, I'm kind of going from accumulating assets to almost like selling my time again.
Yeah.
Obviously, like the whole active career could be turned into a business, but I was like, for those few years, I still gonna be mostly almost like selling my time, than accumulating something that I own. So that the first part turned me off. The second part was I was away very often for weekends because as a real estate agent, you gotta go show houses, you gotta host open houses and all that. Um, at the time I had we have a young kid, we have a 3-year-old. Obviously my wife wouldn't be happy about me being gone on the weekends very often. So we learned that the working schedule and just the cadence just wouldn't work for my family. I think that's the other part. So I think those two kind of kept me thinking about like how can I do something to replace my active income more much faster than accumulating real estate rental properties, right? That was when the time I got inspired by some local investors in Washington. Still shout out to Kyle Boyden and Jake Ferraro. So they had a pretty similar journey, started off as a real estate investors. We all went through the same pain that, in a high cost of living area, when the home pricing are much higher, it was harder to find something that would cash flow to have that kind of the kind of semi-active real estate strategy, if you will.
Mhm.
So they pivoted way earlier into business buying and had some success there. So kind of the early 2024, they did a in-person workshop in the Washington area just to share their journey of how they pivoted into buying businesses and how um, that became a success for them and how they continue acquiring more. So from there, I started kind of drawing the parallel of buying a business. If you think about that business being an asset, right, very similar to how you buy a piece of real estate property. You're trying to do things to push the value so that it could generate more incomes and all that. And compared to real estate, I felt like there was much more levers that you could pull to push the potential of your income versus in real estate. Obviously, there are many value add strategies, but you're still very limited by the market force in terms of like how much rent you could push and things like that. There's less of opportunity to introduce all the other amenities that you can charge fees for, right? Maybe, I mean, Jason, you own bigger apartment buildings, so probably there are more opportunities there. But for me, owning like a triplex or fourplex or even an eightplex, there wasn't that much opportunities to push the income, right? A recent example, right? I just got calls this morning about my eightplex. We super old building. We got to fix a whole bunch of plumbing. There's leaks here and there. I keep pumping in more capex into the building, but I'm not generating more income from doing those, right? So to
Right.
me, like I have a
Yeah.
very capped upside in the very short term with the um, expense variables that I sometimes couldn't control. Yes, I could always like budget for my capex on every year, all that, but there's no way for me to compensate those by creatively finding new ways to for new revenue sources for this
Yeah.
property, right? So I think from there, compare that to the business, I kind of that my light bulb just clicked, right? I feel like what I did in tech and when I knew in tech, there were just so many opportunities to tap into that experience of mine onto business versus real estate properties or real estate investing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said something there that I have actually like word for word had the same exact conversation, is that in business there are more levers to pull to make changes than there are in real estate, and with a faster result too. So it's in a business, you introduce something to add a new revenue stream, you could simply raise your prices. Like there's things that you can do that pretty quickly change outcome. But in real estate, most of the time, especially if you're looking at these long term hold assets, you really have basically a year, usually, when the next time you can have a rental increase or have a change in turnover. And so all of that money that is spent in between lease turnover, is there's no way to recoup it immediately. So I completely understand what you're saying. I think maybe we had a little connection issue right there, but I I could not agree more, basically, with what you're saying about kind of the levers. I think this is a good point, maybe to I told you I'd love to get more of your thoughts on like the difference between real estate acquisition and business acquisition, and maybe even just your thoughts on like the steps, right? Because
Yeah.
there's whatever asset you're talking about, there's sort of the finding, then there's the acquisition process, then there's the operating. And so I definitely want to get to what it's like operating your business, but I think this is probably a good spot to kind of compare and contrast the two.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do that. And for anyone who are well versed into real estate investing, you will find the journey more or less the same. If we think about everything as a funnel, right? Buying a business versus buying real estate, you always have started with sourcing, right? Whether it's going to be on market, off market, you kind of doing a similar thing for uh, buying a business as well. You have all those um, marketplace for people listing their businesses. The most common people always go to bizbuysell.com. You have business brokers who will be representing the sellers of selling their businesses. Key difference is that in the business acquisition world, it was less common to have a broker or an agent representing the buy side. So many times as a business buyer, you are dealing directly with the broker on the sell side.
Mm-hmm.
Although we start seeing more brokers who will be offering kind of the buy side advisory services, but still not the norm right now. So that's on market. Off market are similar. You will go build your list, doing the direct outreach to the owners, right? Now, key differences is that instead of dealing with a consumer who own a piece of real estate property, you're mostly dealing with business owners. Um, and sometimes you get a variety of personalities. There's still kind of the mom and pop businesses that when you're talking to those people, it definitely felt like talking to a real estate owner. Still a bit more consumer mindset. They accidentally build a business that is sustainable, great, but not necessarily in the point that they are thinking about scaling the business and doing trying to professionalize that businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus when you are dealing with a bigger deal, bigger business, it probably felt like you're talking to a owner of some bigger apartment buildings who like they gotta be doing something right to get to where they are. So those people are usually more sophisticated. They are more clear on what they want out of the deal, why they were selling, and all those kind of stuff. So similar to real estate investing, you want to find your niche, you want to find your asset class, things that you feel like that kind of matches like your investing theory. And then you're trying to target kind of that group of business owners, right? So that's sourcing. And then getting into, obviously now you have the financing part of it, right? Buying business, in the US, we have the SBA loan, which is like probably the best you could get in the world in terms of like funding acquisition of a business. Um, Usually that, and then seller financing is much more common in business buying than in the real estate world. obviously the last few years, the whole creative financing has become more common, but still, it's still kind of like a raindrop in the sea in terms of like all the real estate transaction. It's still very uncommon, right? Versus in business buying, it's just very common to see a portion of the acquisition will be funded by like through seller financing. And then obviously there will be people who raise money. There will be more professionalized, the private equity, search funds, and all that. So you kind of get a good spectrum of how you could fund an acquisition, all the way from self-funding through a bank, through raising money. So there are all sorts of options that you could go around. And then now getting to a point where you start, you have a deal on the contract. Same as real estate, same as business, you kind of run through that due diligence process. I would say the due diligence part of things is going to be more complex on the business side than on the real estate side, because it's just much more like the more levers you could pull to generate income. That means you just the more moving pieces you have to audit the business to make sure that everything really like check all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
So that part was in my case, for my acquisition, it took me 45 days, which, for any sort of like I would say $2 million deal, that seems about right. If you're going for much bigger businesses, we call it kind of the middle market, a big, high multi-million dollar deal, that process could even run to like multi-months, right? So I think we could drill down more if we want to, but I think just that whole due diligence process is much more complex than how I would experience on the real estate side of things. And then obviously getting all the way to closing and then start operating the business, right? To me, the right after close for buying a business, it didn't feel like you had any downtime to celebrate or anything like that, because you on day 2 after closing, you start running a new business. And for a smaller business where the owners still do quite a bit of stuff, whether that's in the business or on the business, there are duties to be filled. So definitely that felt like a whirlwind to me right after closing. It felt like it just no time for a break. You just getting into from a project based like a long time trying to close a deal, shit ton of work. Then now you're getting into a longer cycle of more work, at least upfront, right? So at least my first 2 months of owning the business, I feel like I work way much more than me sourcing the deal and trying to close the deal. So not trying to sugarcoat it, I think it was a very real and tough experience, especially for someone who never own or operate a business at all. So
Yeah. Well, and we'll definitely talk about the post close more, but there was a couple things you said that I think really are worth pointing out, and I think just to give people a picture of like really feeling those differences. I think one of the things you said that the sourcing may be similar. I would say the analogy to me is if you're, it's almost like commercial real estate versus residential real estate, where you're dealing with like a homeowner that you're selling or that you're trying to buy something from, versus, again, like you mentioned, you're buying, if you're buying large scale apartment buildings or office or something like that, most of the time that's coming from a bit of a professional shop that's ownership there. So it is different. I also think real estate just seems so much more transactional. Like there's not a lot to be said for relationships. And I've run this through my mind a lot. Even when I bought just our personal house, I never met the sellers. Like that was never a part of it. It's always like yes, if you go direct to seller, you might meet the seller, but most people, when they're buying residential real estate, it's like it all happens on paper basically, and then one day you just move into that house or you own that rental or whatever it is. With businesses, I find it's so much more personal. It's so much more of a relationship. The brokers, the good brokers help the process. The other ones don't, and I'll just leave it at that. But I mean, there's sometimes sometimes I have felt like they actually get in the way because someone isn't going to sell you their business. I look at it like it's almost like selling your child in a way. Like you raise a kid, they grow up, they're 25, and you sell them to someone. Like
Yep.
wrapping your mind around that is crazy. It's not that far off from how a lot of people feel about these businesses that especially if they started it. If they
Yeah.
started this business 20, 30 years ago and now they're ready to retire or whatever, and they're like, I'm going to sell this thing that has been my life every single day for the last 2, 3 decades. Like that is a big deal that really has to be understood. And so, like for me, that's why I say sometimes almost feel like the brokers can get in the way because I don't think the deals happen unless you have a good relationship with the seller. And like because you're going to need them. You need them to be honest with you ahead of time. You also need them when you get to that point, like you just said, you finally close. And when you close a real estate transaction, like we've already talked about, things don't happen that quickly. Like you don't close a real estate transaction and everybody moves out. That's not usually what happens. Like you close a real estate transaction and you're like, okay, I have this 8-plex, maybe 2 of them are vacant. I got to figure out what to do about that. But people aren't moving into them the next day. Like you have a minute to kind of set things up and hit the ground running. But when you buy a business, close on that business, like if you don't start doing things right away, it goes out of business. And so you just bought a business to fail it. And it's like there's a different level of urgency. I think when you get past that point, you touched on financing. I find that very different. Like an SBA loan is a very different beast than really any real estate loan that I've dealt with. It is good. It's a good product that we have available to us because you can leverage these businesses pretty high. So you can buy a business without having to have a ton of cash in your pocket, but at the same time, they are personally guaranteed and they'll put a lien on whatever other assets you have. And so you have that hanging over your head until you pay off that loan. So there's just all kinds of different considerations. I think it's overall, the concept is you're trying to buy an asset that's cash flowing and is going to grow over time. That's no different whether it's real estate or business. Like that's really the ultimate goal, but it plays out quite a bit differently, I think. And I have yet to close on. I've been through all the process except the actual closing. So you've actually closed. And so tell me first, how long did it take you between getting it under contract and closing? What was the time frame there?
Yeah. So I had my first contact with one of the sellers. So it was a two 50-50 owners situation. So I got in touch with one of the owners in July of 2024. We started the conversation and it was a off-market situation, so there was no broker involved. So we actually did a lot of evaluation and conversation upfront before we submitted the letter of intent. So yeah, met one of the owners in July, submitted my letter of intent in September. That was the time I met Jason at the in-person workshop. I was like literally at the workshop. I was getting some help to get my letter of intent draft for the submission. And then after that, and a good plus is like to Jason's point earlier, without the broker involved, I had the opportunity to build a very strong rapport with the owners. So we hashed lots of the negotiations out of the way before that letter of intent. So by the time we submitted that in September, so there was 2 months in, that was a pretty solid terms and price that we agreed on, which after that till closing, we didn't really change the terms much since the letter of intent, which I think many people in the business acquisition world will find it pretty uncommon, because many times you got into that, you went through the whole due diligence, you find more stuff, you renegotiate and all that. We were lucky enough to be very aligned, and the business was very solid. That I did not find much skeletons hiding in the closet throughout the process. And then, we were able to close with the terms and price pretty much the same as what we had in the letter of intent. So letter of intent, September, we went through that 45 days of due diligence, as well as securing my financing through a bank for the SBA loan. So that ran all the way till supposedly we could close in December, but my wife and I, we had a annual Asia trip just for family visits and all that, so we kind of pushed the closing out to end of January. So so September, October. So yeah, it kind of a 4 months process from submitting the getting the acceptance on the letter of intent to finally closing the acquisition, which theoretically it could be done in a 90-day, a 3 month time frame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think yes, it can be done in 90 days. You're probably the fastest. I mean, you had some lead up time, so if you include that July to September, it's more of a 6-month process. But
yeah,
there are often people that speak. I mean, we're in the same group, people that are under contract for 6 months, 8 months, a year and a half. Like, it can take a long time to get something closed, and
mm-hmm.
for all different reasons, right? It's like sometimes you mentioned the larger deals, you might want more time for due diligence. You might have issues with financing, so it's like you might get 60 days in and then the bank's like, no, and so then you're almost starting over again, which
Yep.
I mean, that stuff happens, and people talk about it quite frequently. So it's there are a lot more variables, I think. This is another difference between real estate. Real estate, it's like you get under contract, you agree on everything, you do your inspections, like you're probably closing in 45 days. Like it's pretty common. And if it doesn't close in 45 to 60 days, it's probably not closing. But it's like, they say things in the business world like every deal dies 3 times along the way or something. Like there's all these cliches, but I think cliches are there for a reason, because there's some real truth to it. So you have had, compared to some of the stories, like a relatively smooth process getting to I don't even want to say finish line, because close isn't really the finish line. It's like the starting point. But
it's the new beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they do all of this work over 3, 4, 6, 8 months to start over and have more work. So let's talk about that then. So you take over now. I don't think I know this, but I don't actually think we've said this yet on the podcast. But this business is in Hawaii, and you live in Seattle.
Correct.
So that is, I want to just make sure people kind of know that, because I think that is I mean, people buy businesses that aren't in their local area. That happens all the time, but it's just a different set of logistics to manage. And I think that's something that I've heard you talk about on another podcast, but I guess let's start digging in there on the, it's closing day. Like what next? Like, how did that process go? And walk us through that a little bit.
And there was a funny story there too. I was supposed to be flying into Hawaii on the day of closing, which is January 31st, so that we are supposed to be doing some, almost like a ceremony, or with the sellers. And then I was on the plane, ready to go on the night of January 30th. And then my plane, from Seattle to Hawaii was halfway in, and then there was a crazy thunderstorm in Hawaii, and they had to make all the planes, turn back to Seattle. So I was like, I
Oh,
spent 4 hours, above the Pacific Ocean, just going from Seattle back to Seattle, and I kind of missed that in person. It's not necessary to close in person, but like there was
yeah.
something that we were planning for. So anyway, so that did not happen. So I had to fly in again, like the kind of the Monday, the Sunday before the Monday where we will announce the acquisition to the team, right?
Mhm.
So just a fun story when you have buying a business out of your location. Sometimes you will have the curveballs like that.
Yeah.
uh, so it was a by when we started searching for a business, we were absolutely looking for something that were local, because that obviously make everything much easier. We spent a few months looking and just couldn't find anything that financially makes sense, and the kind of business that I wanted and all that. So when this deal came through my table, I was pretty lukewarm, because it's out of state, it's in Hawaii, it's like so far away.
Yeah.
uh, but I still willing to entertain that, and got to a point seeing all the finances and all that, and just find it was like probably the most solid deal that I've been seeing from all the stuff that I did. So my wife and I, we start kind of crunching, discussing and all that. Hey, now this is like out of state, how are we gonna do that? And what's our chance of relocating to Hawaii for that? So we kind of went through all the possibilities, and still feel like just tying those back to our eventual goal of having that location and time freedom and all that. If we did everything right, if we play our card right, if we build the company right, uh, the location wouldn't matter at some point. Not
Mhm.
right off the bat. I think there's a lot of stuff we have to do to get to there, but that shouldn't change our ultimate goal of having that flexibility and freedom. So we put the trigger knowing that like we might need to relocate to Hawaii. Like I think it's part of that. So there's that, and then the biggest. Uh, I wouldn't say surprised. I think we foresee that is Hawaii just being a state that are very local, strong local community. The way of doing business there are very different from on the mainland. We kind of expected that, and even that now personally going through that, I definitely felt like there's stuff that we could use from the mainland, from like a cultural or kind of how you do business kind of perspective, but like there's just a lot more uh just that personal connection, not just with the clients but also with the team. I think that I learned that I have to spend much more time than I expected to I really have to earn the trust from my clients and team that I'm doing a good job. I actually care about the company, I care about the island. So I think that end up I'll spend much more time than I was thinking upfront that I'll be spending time on the island, right? So right now my schedule is I spend half of my time. I will fly every other week to Hawaii, coming back here for a week, then we'll go back again. So we will reassess that logistics probably in a few more months to see either we will reduce the frequency of travel, or we're going to be just do a full-on relocation to Hawaii. So this is the part where um, the kids education all that is involved. So there's just more logistics that needs to be planned. So TBD, but it is quite an experience and additional variable they have to plan. So with that journey, like if possible, right? You can find something locally, assuming someone don't want to relocate. Obviously, preferable to reduce the variables that you need to think about, right? If you
Mhm.
find
Yeah.
a solid business in the local area, many times, Jason, you probably know, like it's not always possible,
Right.
because when
Yeah.
you start limiting your geographical area, that means there just much less businesses are going to be flowing through your pipeline. So you just have to be flexible and really asking yourself how much you're willing to like either relocate or sacrifice or trade up or doing all sorts of travels, so that you have a good filter for the right numbers of deals flowing through your pipeline that you can actually find a business that you can close on.
Yeah. Uh, that's such a great point. And it's a, I mean, this is what happens, right? Like things get, someone gets really good at talking about something online, social media, things like that. It was kind of how, um, real estate before the interest rates went up, everybody's like, we're making so much money, everybody should do this, pay me to teach you how. And there's this message of like, this will be so easy. And I think some of that is now happening in the business acquisition world. I think both strategies are great. This is not to say that those are not good strategies. We've both done them both. I think that sometimes what gets talked about is only the good stuff, and it's like you should buy a business because you can buy a business that has an operator in place, or you can put one in place, and it'll be completely hands off, and you'll be able to do it from wherever you want, and you'll spend. And it's it's that oh, and also you can just do seller financing, and that'll be like basically you're getting it for free. And if like there's just all this stuff that I think gets talked about that's all conceptually good stuff, but also in some ways, it's one, it's a unicorn. Two, it's what everybody's looking like. Everybody wants the perfect deal, right? So
Yeah.
you have to look at, like you just said, like you have to look at what are the variables for you that are most important, and like I think the business type may or may not lend itself to being remote, right? Like there are certain businesses that you don't necessarily have to be on site in the office, whatever the case may be, frequently as the owner. But there are certain businesses where you kind of do. And so you have to look at all of those pieces and narrow down your search criteria, and
Yeah.
just be one of the things I think, and I heard you talk about this on another podcast that I found interesting, is this business is based in Hawaii, effectively at this point only operates in Hawaii. I think I heard you say you're sort of running out of market on the island, because essentially then you're working for competitors of your customers.
Yep.
So I would what that brought to mind to me is like, maybe it's a good thing that you live on the mainland, because the expansion of that business effectively means on the mainland. Like
Yeah.
if you've reached kind of the limit or close to it on the island, now you have to start to look at how that can
Yep.
translate to the mainland. So I don't know, maybe you haven't, maybe it's too early to really look that deep into that aspect, but I'm not sure if you want to comment on, kind of
Yeah.
what your thoughts are for the future of the business.
I think yeah, that's the eventual goal, right? Right now, we do have a business development person in California, and before the acquisition, it was the owners also realized that as well.
Mm.
So they kind of started doing lots of the marketing effort onto the mainland versus on the island. Uh, so that is very real, and I think for the future, the way of how we're going to be expanding is going to be spending more kind of the active marketing effort, more national wide, and trying to attract more, well, not just the mainland, but potentially international businesses as well. Because even like in the US, it could still get pretty competitive, but outside, if you look at Central America, South America, or even in Canada, I think there are hotels are everywhere. They are our key
Right.
clients, and I don't think that many hotels are up to par with how they do marketing. So I think there are lots of opportunities there. Um, yeah, So that's the future is going to be there, and then a good part of having liaison being in Hawaii is great because I lots of mainland agencies trying to break into the Hawaii markets, and with not without success because I really like our clients in on the island. Lots of them are really optimized for they were much more preferring a local company to work with than like somebody on the mainland. So I think this company, Lyson, does have a strong moat on the businesses in Hawaii. So that gave me a good base as we try to expand more and kind of take the mainland, right? So started also, there's a price that I pay, meaning like, to your point, I think more personal time are required. I think it could be a scaled problem as well. Like, when a business is big enough and then there are enough leaders and people that you trust running the companies, obviously any business theoretically can be run remotely.
Yeah.
So, but we are talking about especially buying a smaller kind of the small and medium sized business. Not something that is like hundreds of people, right? If you're talking about like my team, when I have a team of like 15 people or so, like these size of company, is it still requires a sort of a human touch, personal connection, and all that to effectively run the company until again you make enough revenue that you can actually cover a more like a professional manager of some sort running the show for you. Then obviously you as an owner could be much more flexible in terms of location and time and all that. So
Yeah, 100%. I mean I love the way you put it. Effectively, you can scale yourself to a remote. As a owner CEO, you can scale yourself to remote on about any business. But yeah, you have to be able to build the right leadership team
yep.
underneath you to allow that to happen. But
Yeah.
that's exactly how people own multiple businesses. Is how that's what PE companies do all the time. They own multiple businesses, maybe not even in the same space, the same type of business, but they're buying businesses with leadership teams, or they're creating a leadership team, and so you're kind of just goes up another level. You're overseeing that.
Yeah. Oh, and I should just point out one more thing. I think it's a key difference between real estate and business as asset classes, right? It just a lot more variables on human beings that you deal with. It just like unless you're running like a tech company or maybe you start building like a AI first company that you don't need people to run, which I don't think we are there yet. But yeah, I think people that you hire running anything in your business, like literally like it would make or break your businesses. Like we have really strong team members who are they're doing their job exceptionally good, so that I don't have to worry about those parts, so I can actually focus on the other part of the businesses, right? So and if you happen to have team members or employees that you hire that are not preferred, or just not doing the right thing, or they're not trained the right way, like it will make your life so much more miserable than tenants who give you when owning a piece of real estate. So
no, that I mean the people and culture, really the backbone of business. So I think it's important to if you come into one of these businesses and they're at this size, you've got enough people that they can do the work, without you, but you have to still establish culture, look at leadership and things like that. So I mean, it's but again, that's where the opportunity lies. Is like we said, these levers, right? There's all kinds of different ways you can do that. So, well, Ken, I know you're busy. Obviously, I want to make sure I ask you. I mean, the name of the podcast is Know Your Why, and I got a real sense of this from that other podcast I listened to you. But I want to ask you, what is your why, and let you talk a little bit about that. What's driving you here?
Yeah, my why, family first. I think I'm doing all these, trying to have all the time in the world that I can spend with not just my my wife and my kid and all that, but also my extended families back in Asia. I want to be getting to a point that we can just be anywhere when we are needed. Went through that stories. My parents, they all got cancer at some point in their lives, so I have to uh, be really fighting for those time to be back in Asia to take care of them. Even like when my mom got cancer, it was like right in the middle of the pandemic. I had to like actually get through all this hurdle, getting quarantined, getting back to China to do all those like craziness. It was just very tough when you are working for someone. You almost like you have to beg for like mercy and approval to do something like that. I was fortunate that being in the tech world, people are usually more flexible on allowing those kind of remote settings.
Mhm.
I know that it's not given, right? For most of the people, when these kind of flexibility are needed. So I needed those. I need that for my families. I need it for my own. So I think that's my biggest why. And the second biggest why is really just the self or actualization piece of it. I want to prove to myself that I can actually like make it on my own versus like relying on someone else. I think this might be an unpopular opinion, but I will say it. I think everyone, literally, and everyone can own a rental. I don't think anyone is like can be a business owner. I think there are people out there who might be better off of being an employee for someone and still get to all the biggest why, have build that career and all that. Like I just don't believe that like is the right path for anyone. I think they just it could be many more other ways that are less risky and more stable to build that nested egg or the network and all that, and still you can still be happy in the corporate world and all that. I think like it really requires lots of extreme ownership and be willing to take on all this pain to either you buying a business or building a business from scratch. I think it is a crucible that it's just not meant for everyone. So
Yeah.
pretty contrary to what other influencers are saying online, but I think just going through that once and seeing others who try this path but end up just giving up, I just don't think it's for everyone. And it's okay that it's not for everyone because
Yeah.
there are just other paths that are more viable for others, right?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. No, and I agree, and I think it's not even so much like it's maybe should, I don't know, like, you know what I mean, like people, just not everybody is cut out to, I don't even think it's cut out. I think just some people just don't want to do the things that it takes to buy and run a business or start a business or what. I think that there's a higher level of commitment to it. So I agree with you. I think it's not for everyone. But I think one thing I want to kind of put in here is I think like in your message and my kind of idea and message is really what we're all shooting for is time freedom. And you said, oh, we take over a business. I'm going to Hawaii every other week. It in a on the surface, it does sometimes, and maybe even initially, it factually takes away time from family. But like at the same time, to me, it's more about the control of that time. And it's like you could be traveling back and forth with your family. You could be like, you can do this any way that you want. And like you said, like you're going to reassess whether it's time to relocate. Like the those are not options when you work for someone else. Like that's really what it comes down to in entrepreneur world. Is it's like you probably work more hours, you might actually make less money at the beginning, like, but you have control of that and options based on that control. And so I just think that's like, to me, that's the goal. Like that's what makes the struggle days worth it. Is it's like at
yep.
the end of those struggle days, like, you know what, I'm shutting off the computer and the phone and I'm going to go play with my kids or whatever it is. Like you have that autonomy that you might not have otherwise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think just the idea that like when anything that went wrong, um, there's no one else to blame but yourself. I think that is a very empowering mindset that I'm on my own. Like anything, even whatever your team did, like shit hit the fan, it's all on you. So
yeah,
it's up to you to fix it, and
yeah.
you have the control. So it's the blessing and the curse. But I wouldn't trade that to just anything you will. I think it's a very empowering position to be.
Yeah, and I think our kids get to watch that and get that sense like this is oh daddy's got to work, but also like daddy's here at my baseball game. So it's kind of like there's that stuff that it's just different. It's sometimes I think it's hard to describe. Sometimes I think this sucks. I don't want to keep doing this. But then it's also like I always what I go back to is like, oh, I could go get a job again. And then I'm like, nope, this is better. Like this is better. And it's not even really a hard decision. I'm like, no, this is better. This is better than going back.
Once you get a taste of it, it just you wouldn't trade anything else for that. Like I mean, like I could well, we always talk about if I ever just go back to tech, I think I'll be making more than what I'm making right now, and still have a really cozy lifestyle and all that. Sure, you have to take crap from your boss and dealing with the whole corporate politics and all that, but you have good money but yeah, I don't want that anymore.
Right. Yeah, you're like, you say it and like, that actually sounds pretty nice. And then I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good right here being in control. So I completely get it. Kin, when people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
LinkedIn will be best.
Okay. LinkedIn, and we'll get your LinkedIn handle in the show notes. This was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate the time. I appreciate everything that you shared with us. I think a really sort of powerful story at many different levels, and an argument, certainly an argument for entrepreneurship, but also a good sort of compare and contrast real estate and business acquisition. Don't have to pick one, but here are some of the similarities and differences. So thanks for taking the time out today, Kin.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks for inviting me again, Jason. It was nice to have a good chat with you again after. Just funny that when we first met, that was literally the deal that I was working on, and I got lucky enough to did my first swing, and that was a home run. So
yeah, fantastic. Folks listening, make sure you connect with Kin. Please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?